You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Mayor Reich, who co-founded a company called RankAbove, which is designed to help websites do better in the search world. And he is what we would call in Israel on the Goldstein on Gelt show a high-tech hero. Mayor, real pleasure to have you.
Nice being here. Thank you, Douglas.
I'd like to talk to you about the high-tech world in Israel, because a lot of the listeners here are interested in investing and being involved in it. But just before we talk more generally, tell us, what is RankAbove and how does it work?
So RankAbove is a 8-year-old business. We started off as a search engine optimization agency, providing service to primarily large multinational corporations doing their SEO. And what we did was we actually built a piece of software that was able to do what we did as a manual service for these companies, to do things better, faster, and more intelligently, because the websites we were working with were so large. So it does what it does is it finds opportunities for where they can optimize their site so that they can come up higher in the search results. If you searched, for instance, for a Samsung Galaxy S6, right? So our customers would use our software to be able to say, we want to rank higher for that keyword. We would show them exactly what they have to do, both on their website as well as what their competition is doing in order to beat them out in the search results.
So is this considered kosher work from Google's terms?
Yeah, we actually have a extremely close relationship with Google and work with them on advising certain products that they've actually built. So we work completely by the book. In fact, we've even built software that helps companies who've been hit by some sort of Google penalty. Google hands out penalties for people who violate their terms of service or the proper rules of how to optimize your website. And we've built software around helping these companies recover from those kinds of penalties, so essentially become compliant.
And you help companies around the world. You're not just focusing in Israel.
No, we're not focused in Israel at all. We have a few local Israeli customers, but they're primarily focused on international markets. I would say about 75% of our business comes from the U.S., and we currently operate in 25 countries around the world.
Wow. All right, so you are a pretty serious entrepreneur yourself, and your company is quite a serious Israeli startup, but it wasn't always that way. You started actually pretty small. If people are looking at a company like RankAbove as an example of what Israeli high-tech and innovation is all about, and they wanted to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give to people looking to really build up a major powerhouse kind of company?
So first of all, I think it's the first time I think I've ever been called serious, so I appreciate that. The way we built RankAbove is my background actually came from the industry. So I think the first and foremost thing to do is really, if you decide you want to start a tech company, start a tech company in an industry where you have contacts and know-how. Most people can't raise money unless they have some sort of revolutionary idea that nobody else has been able to really figure out how to do it, or it's creating a brand new market that's never existed before. I always tell entrepreneurs, focus on what you're good at. And only start a venture in a field where you have connections and know-how. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to build a business and a brand.
Okay.
So that's the first piece of advice.
Number one, do what you know. Okay. Number two.
I think number two is the minute you know you want to go out there. A lot of entrepreneurs in the early stages seem to lock themselves in a garage with their ramen soups and pizza and Coca-Cola. Which is the classic, cliche about startups, rather than actually going out to the market and talking to people about the need. I think a lot of people have their own ideas of what they need to develop and how to do it. But a lot of times, once you launch that product, the market tells you something very different. So I tell you, when I started RankAbove, for instance, we had nothing in terms of software. I took a 5-slide PowerPoint to the U.S. with me. I went to sit at very large advertising agencies and corporations where I had contacts, and we basically showed them what we planned on building. Right? We said, this is what we're working on, even though it was all vaporware. And then based on their feedback, we went back and we actually wrote our product roadmap based on the feedback that we received.
So in other words, you found the customers first before you actually built the product for them.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like a smart move. As you're pointing out, all too often people may spend a lot of time and a huge amount of their own money, their family's money, and investor money trying to develop something that they won't actually be able to sell at the end. And I think it's a great point. So much is based on how much you can sell. Otherwise, you've just kind of wasted your time. We're talking to Meir Reich, who is the CEO and founder of an Israeli company called RankAbove. But even though it's based in Israel, it's really dealing with people all around the world. Meir is what we call here a high-tech hero. And really he is. He's helped change the nature of Israel. And Meir, I'm not trying to pump you up too much, but I think it's important for people to realize the opportunities that are available both as an entrepreneur and as an investor if you're looking at Israel. One of the big issues that I think a lot of small businesses have, and I guess big businesses have it as well, but maybe it's in a different scale, is how do they find good people? Now, you've got an international company. How do you actually find the people to run the shop?
So it's very difficult to find good people. I think I think that what I have found in terms of building a team, first of all, our team, most of the people who have joined RankAbove over the past 8 years since we've started the business, most of them actually stuck with us. So we still have our core founding team from within the first few months of the business. Obviously, we've had some levels of turnover, both from letting people go who are not right fits for the company. And my one point on that is, if you see somebody does not fit in culturally, or is not pulling their weight in a early stage startup, always best off to pull the trigger on removing them from your team pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times entrepreneurs kind of sit on people because they've built this familial type of relationship, but it's very important to cut ties with people very quickly if you see it's not working. I think the other thing is the lack of corporate structure, certainly that I believe in within RankAbove, really helps people kind of grow and flourish within the organization. So if you find people with the right skill set that you're looking for, let them do their jobs, give them responsibility, let them take on multiple tasks. And I think that's a great way to grow, to really grow a company and grow people within your organization, where it's a place that they want to work, and it's a place where they really give their 110%, and they feel it's their own as well. Because the minute somebody feels that the business is theirs too, then they're going to work harder to make it succeed.
So how do you give them this freedom and still be able to direct what you're trying to ultimately achieve?
Because there's still accountability at the end of the day. If you know a customer is unhappy, if you know technology is not getting developed, if you know sales targets aren't being hit, then clearly there's something wrong. But people, when they feel ownership, feel that they know that there are going to be times of there's going to be slower times and there's going to be busier times, and they just step up to the occasion to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you feel that it's better to actually bring people in-house and have them work for you? Or I think what we're seeing more and more today is the ability to outsource around the world, which is a better path for a young company.
So I think it depends on the role. I think there are critical roles that a company needs to own because it's part of the company's intellectual property. It's part of their core competence, and I think it's very, very important to have those people as part of your team. And I think the other thing that where outsourcing is okay is certain aspects of the job that are really not your core competence. It's not who you are as a company. And at the end of the day, if always look at things in terms of value creation. If somebody's not truly creating value that you can't buy elsewhere, and always cut off that job when needed, then that's the sort of job you want to keep either in-house or outsource accordingly.
How about something like marketing, even web marketing? I know this is your background, that people, companies want to get out there on the web. They want to express themselves. They want to do emails and social media, but they themselves, the leaders of the company, may not be so good at it, and yet they're the ones who really have the message inside them that they want to share. And yet they don't have the technical know-how. But finding a company to do that and really pick it up instead of someone who just says, well, do A, B, and C, which usually then doesn't happen. How can a company deal with the marketing if it's not something that the leadership is really great at?
So first of all, the leadership have to be generalists, regardless of what their original background is in terms of business. It doesn't mean that they have to know how to run campaigns themselves, but they have to know how to ask the right questions. So it could mean sitting with 15 different marketing agencies to hear what's the feedback, speak to people who've worked with those agencies, really doing your diligence as opposed to just feeling comfortable very early on because there's a nice rapport with the potential vendor. And if you know how to ask the right questions, you'll also know you'll also know who's kind of going to supply you with great service and who's not. And I think those recommendations and references are extremely important.
I think that's the $1 million question. That was knowing what questions to ask when you have that meeting.
Yes, but I think if you're running a business, it's 24. In my case, it's a 24-hour, 6-day-a-week type of venture where you're always on call, you're always working, you're always reading, in order to learn more things about what's happening in your industry and your market, but also just getting better at certain things that you're not necessarily, I would say, either experienced with from a professional standpoint, and the like. For instance, finance, right? A CEO who can't run finance at the end of the day is probably not a very good CEO. Mm-hmm. Whether he has a background in finance or not, he needs to be able to know how to ask the right questions, right? You need to be able to look at a spreadsheet and run numbers in your head and figure things out in terms of where you're going to take the business. So you have to learn finance. Right. If you're not great at marketing as a CEO, you have to learn some marketing. It doesn't mean you have to do it yourself, but you have to be able to understand all the concepts.
Mm-hmm. So you really do have to get your hands around what's going on. Mayor, actually, I in fact wanted to cover with you some of the bigger pictures about Israel, but unfortunately we're just about out of time, so we'll have to have you back in the future. But it's been great wisdom you've been sharing with people about being a startup, a very successful startup like RankAbove, and the steps that people need to take if they're going to hopefully follow in that path. So in the last few seconds, can you just tell us how can people follow you and learn more about the work that you're doing?
So the best way to actually reach out to us is through our website at rankabove.com. We have a Twitter and Facebook account, but since we sell to Fortune 500 companies primarily, it's not our real main tool of communication. Really, our website does most of the talking for us. Okay. So that's the best way to reach us.
Okay, and we will put a link to that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. And I will tell people it's worth checking out the site because there are some very interesting articles there. Mayor Reich, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Douglas.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.